It may be time to put the provincial jerseys away for now, but it's still time to start harping on rugby. Hi, my name is Jeff Pagano, and welcome to Harpin On Rugby, where with the help of some fellow fans, I get the chance to harp on what's going on with Leinster, Ireland, and the wider rugby world. Well, for the past 6 weeks, we have, of course, been following the progress of Leinster in the URC. But with a weekend off, we're going to take a sharp turn, and to help me look ahead to Ireland's involvement in the Autumn Nation Series, I've assembled another one of my all-provincial panels of fellow rugby nerds. So let's crack on with meeting them, shall we? First up, representing Connacht, is the owner-operator of the excellent online entity known as the Second Row, earning his 17th Harpin cap. Welcome back to Mr. Pádraig Kelly.
Thanks, Jeff. Great to be on. It's been a long time, and
Indeed.
I can't wait to get stuck into November internationals. It's been a good URC season so far, and these internationals look like they're going to be really, really good.
Absolutely. And next we have a Munster fan who dabbles in the content creation arts himself. He hosts a show in his own name as well as the Red Army podcast. He's here for the 9th time. Hello once more to Mr. Caolan Scully.
Thanks very much for having me on, Jeff. It's great to be back. I can't believe it's 9 appearances now at this stage. That's the bit that stood out
You're
to me.
getting close to double figures, indeed. Yeah,
honestly,
that's it.
I'll be at 50 the next
almost
thing.
A veteran. Yeah, that's it. And last but certainly not least, standing up for the Ulstermen, we have someone who might only be appearing for the second time here, but he's also shared his thoughts many a time on the Red Hand podcast. Greetings to Mr. Jack Fogarty.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Good to be back, and nice to dive into the Irish chat instead of the roller coaster that is Ulster rugby at the minute. So yeah, thanks for having me on.
Well, we're going to be testing your opinions on that as well for a separate chat later on. But let's get going anyway with tonight's discussion. Now, if the Irish senior men's team's progress were a TV series, then the last episode left us with quite a cliffhanger after Kieran Frawley's gasp drop goal turned a 2-0 series defeat in South Africa into a tied series, which further frustrated the Springboks in their quest to scratch that long-running Irish itch of theirs. It put us back to top spot in the world rankings. And of course, how could we possibly forget the fact that we regained possession of the much after Ranfurly Shield, all of which means expectations must be high going into this autumn series, where we must face all the remaining rugby championship nations as well as Fiji, a rare form match November for us these days, kicking off on Friday evening against our old friends, the All Blacks. But with no actual trophy on offer over the coming weeks, how can we properly define those expectations? Starting with yourself, Pádraig.
I think it's performances and wins, really. And I'm telling you right now, there is some really rubbish trophy for every one of those games. And if we don't think there's going to be something flashed up if someone wins, we are very sorely mistaken. Though I think over the course of the next 4 weeks, we have to be looking for some really good performances, backing up what we saw in the summer, especially when you think that we're actually injecting some of the more stable injured players that we're used to, like Keenan's back in. You know, there's guys coming back in from that tour. You're kind of going, oh, that was actually a good finish to that tour. And now we're world number one. Now all these guys coming back in. I think we're in a really, really, really good place. I would expect us to push on and get a good few wins here, because that's a squad that knows how to win. I think I kind of did a big list because I was looking at what I'm looking for from that squad, and I was actually kind of disappointed that it wasn't 4 or 5 players bigger. This is a home tour. I know Andy Farrell likes kind of having those close-knit groups, us against the world mentality, which is very easy to do when you have a smaller group. But I don't think 1 or 2 more props would have done any difference. Another 10. Someone in the back line that isn't Osborne under the age of 25. You know, that would be kind of my in the main squad, not as a training panelist, because I know they are technically 2 different classified. But apart from that, seeing all those players get game time, that's what we need to see as well, especially in the back row, like making sure Izachuku gets game time, Prendergast gets game time. You know, that's what needs to happen in this series, just to kind of go, all right, Ireland is a win today, win tomorrow, win the next week type of team. We're not winning 6 months down the line. We're not winning the next World Cup. We're winning the next match. That's a squad to win the next match. That's perfectly fine. But if you're going to bring all those guys in, they've all got to get game time.
Yeah, I mean, it's always been the challenge. I mean, November has always been kind of a sort of a setup kind of month in terms of developing a squad, and and I suppose not having a tournament as such for the month kind of helps with that. It's games. Now they're big games, obviously, but you're talking about preparing for the Six Nations or whatever's going ahead down the line. It's an extra unusual November for us, though, in that not only we've got that extra game for one thing, but also we've got the coaching staff kind of sort of a semi transition going on. You got Simon Easterby who's going to be taking over. Andy Farrell's technically here, but you got to figure he's giving Easterby the reins quite a bit for this month as well, because he's going to be taking it for the next while, and he's already done the tour to South Africa and stuff, so he's used to kind of running the show in that. So there's a lot going on. What do you think, Kyan?
I would echo a lot of what Pork said. Firstly, on that point about performances, I think we do need to see that. I think Ireland's Six Nations certainly tailed off. I don't think the performances in the summer, I think it's very hard to read anything into them because it's the end of a really, really long season. And I think both sides looked like they were at the end of a really long season. So performances, they do need an uptick, especially first up against New Zealand, no matter what way New Zealand played at the weekend. The other thing about the squad, I do think we need to test the squad. We'll get onto that with a few predictions and things like that later, and I might touch on it there. But certainly, like when I did up a squad for Twitter, for sharing on socials and getting a conversation going, I had a couple more uncapped players. And I don't think it's about, like you do get this argument of like, oh, who do you drop, or you can't call up 50. You could, technically. Like there's no like squad limit on these things. I'm not saying like call up 60 players or whatever. But I would like to see, maybe someone like Aidan Morgan or David McCann at Ulster, call forward at Connacht, for instance. Alex Candella's there from Munster, which is great. I'd like to see. I'd have loved to have seen Tom Ahern in, but to be fair, he only got back playing the week that the squad was named, so that one is very understandable. But for me, it's about 4 wins. Like I have been juggling with this one kind of since he sent it on. I think 4 wins is I think it's the minimum for Ireland. And as someone kind of said to me on the pod I did earlier on today, like Ireland are kind of where New Zealand were at a certain point, where you are good, like you are at the point where, okay, win the Six Nations, that's what's expected of you. And the last 2 or 3 years has been that, which is great. But it's about other things like testing the squad. But I think in a November like this, should Ireland beat Argentina? Yes. Should Ireland beat Australia? Yes. Should they beat Fiji? Definitely. Kind of have to beat New Zealand to get that monkey off the back since last year. Because as much as you can move on from the quarterfinal, like Ireland I think they need a performance in a really, really big game, a full 80-minute performance, the type of which we haven't seen in those Six Nations deciders or in the World Cup quarterfinal, just for themselves, just to kind of, because as you said, they're going into a period of transition. I feel like if they can kind of bookend this portion of the kind of win now cycle that Andy Farrell has had with a big win, a big performance over New Zealand on Friday night, that would be the positive for me. But I think anything less than 4 wins and you're in a murky zone where you're saying, well, won a Six Nations when we had the Grand Slam within touching distance. Summer series again, I'm not too pushed about whatever way you want to look at it. And if you lose to New Zealand, it's could have been 4, it was only 3 kind of a thing. So for me, it has to be. That's the standards this team has set. Like that's the thing. It's not that we bet Italy, there we go, we're the best team in the world. It's nothing like that. They are legitimately a top 3 team in the world, hands down, at the very minimum. So you expect them to beat 4 teams who are worse than them, not worse, but lower in the rankings.
Yeah, I think the key word there is standards. I mean, it's where we are at the moment. I mean, we obviously we had the disappointment in the World Cup, but besides that, I mean, so much has happened. We had that long run of wins. We got to the number 1. We had the Grand Slam. We back-to-back titles. All that. South Africa. Pulling a tie out of that series, and it's just it's gotten to a stage where we can't be looking for plucky performances in November anymore. It's a case of you do have to look for those. You do have to look at to keep those standards and get those 4 wins. What do you make of it, Jack?
Yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, obviously, everyone kind of knows now the Andy Farrell style is to get wins no matter what. And we've seen autumn series before where we played the likes of I think it might have been Japan and sort of might have been the USA as well. That might have been a few years ago. Might have been during COVID or just afterwards. But Andy Farrell doesn't really rotate his squad an awful lot. And these are some pretty decent sides that we're going to play. And I agree with Kalen when he's talking about they are lower than us in the rankings. We should probably be able to beat all four of them at home. And obviously Ireland's record at the Aviva is at Lansdowne is amazing, so it really should be four wins. But I'm a bit more relaxed in terms of results. I'm not hugely too bothered about if we did lose to New Zealand, but we saw something different, or if we saw something that makes us kind of think like, okay, well, these we're giving these guys a run out and they're giving these guys a test in the same way that, Easterby is going to have to, and the rest of the ticket are going to have to get through the Six Nations without Farrell. It's a good opportunity for those guys to sort of put their kind of coaching credentials up there in terms of, right, I'm gonna stick my name on, whether it's the set piece or whether it's, some back play, moves, things like that, kind of starter plays, things like that make us think that we're moving in the right direction. That's probably more of the areas that I want to see Ireland moving towards. With squad as well, it's obviously probably, well, I think it's stronger than the squad that we sent to South Africa, which is probably a bit ironic, but considering we did pretty well. Um, so yeah, like having guys like Gibson Park back and Keenan, obviously we've already mentioned guys like that, and just being at the start of the season, the guys have had a bit of a break. Obviously, it was a bit of a weird start, and they had emerging Ireland as well. So there's been a lot that's going on, but I think that Ireland should be in a pretty strong place to get four wins from four. But with New Zealand coming up first, it's the perfect sort of setup, really. Ireland can just go hell for leather on the first one, and then if they win that, then I'd like to see a good bit of rotation for Fiji, and probably back to the first team and then yeah, Australia you could probably rotate as well a wee bit for them because we're just you just don't know what. I mean, you never know. They could just bring, and Will Skelton could have a ridiculous game, couldn't he? But I think one of the big things for me is having a little bit of rotation, and I think that we'll get that because Farrell, although the South Africans like to tell us that we've not had one new debut since 2018 or something. They we've had a good few kind of new guys or guys who have like five or few caps, and like guys like Nash getting a run in the team and performing really well. Just guys like that, and potentially there's another person in there who's got 5, 10 caps who needs to have a bit of a run in the front row, second row, wherever it might be. We're obviously going to have a bit of a problem at hooker, but I can really see us going 4 from 4, but I think we should, take a few little risks and test a few guys who haven't been sort of put in these kind of pressure environments before, because a bit of a Rassie Erasmus move. We need to sort of try things and test things out. We put Kwaka Smith at number 8, for example, in the summer. It's like we should do something like that. We should just do something a bit mad and a bit crazy and kind of see where it goes, and it might give us a little bit of an idea to go forward into the next World Cup or into the Six Nations, things like that. So it's a good chance for experimentation. So I think we should experiment. Yeah.
Yeah, and you spoke about what the South Africans say about us, and I think that's when we're talking about our expectations. We should also factor in, because of our success, there's expectations coming from the other nations as well. I mean, they're looking at their schedules for November, and they're picking out the game against Ireland. That's, for a lot of them, that's their big match of the 4 weeks. So you have to live up to those standards as well. You wanted to say one more thing, Parek?
Yeah, I think especially two things. One, with the Lions coming up just across the way, I think Farrell would love to end this with a clean sweep, because that way it gets. And I hate using this as an excuse, the press off his back, because especially the English and press. Like if he doesn't have 4 wins coming out of this, they're just going to be looking for mistakes from now on.
The English press, really?
I know.
Surely not.
But like, it's actually on the squad build. I forgot to say earlier on. In that squad of 35, there's 11 over the age of 30, and 5 of those are in the front row out of the 8 front row players, and that's a ticking time bomb for Ireland in general. I think looking at the emerging Ireland squad, seeing how those props did was very good, but it's that thing of emerging Ireland props from last year should be in this squad. It's those guys. That's the worry. I know we have a nice summer test next year to literally flood with new younger players, but they need to get props, grow with game time, and I think they should be scrummaging against the lads who are there now. And that's the big worry, but that's a long-term worry for Ireland. And the front row is a ticking time bomb.
Yeah, different type of bomb squad for sure. Okay, so before we return to the pod, first a little reminder of all the different places you'll find us in the rugby sphere. Myself and the lads are recording an extra chat looking at the season so far for their respective provinces. And to get access to our latest content, as well as our presence on the different social media platforms, you can bookmark us at linktree/Harpin On Rugby. Please be sure to comment, like, share, and subscribe as needed. Okay, so now it's time to have a look more closely at what type of match day squads we'll be looking to put out over the coming weeks. Now, with all respect to our other opposition, it's more than likely we'll be selecting our strongest available 23 for the opener against the All Blacks. So I asked Claylon to have a go at it, at selecting it, so the rest of us can pick it apart player by player. No, seriously, you posted your team on X on Sunday morning. Why don't you go through it for us?
Yeah, I did. And it's only when I went back into my written down notes that I realized I may have made a couple of changes between those notes and the ones I put on Twitter this morning. Sorry, I refuse to call it X just for my own reasons. But I'll start off the front row. As Pádraig said, it is a very aging out kind of group, but Porter and Furlong will play 70 plus minutes on Friday night, you would imagine, because they're that good. There's not many props in the world who can go 70 plus, so use them. They're 2 of the best in the world. If Ronan Kelleher is fit, I have Ronan Kelleher in at hooker. There's that question mark. We will wait and see on that one. Tadhg Beirne and Joe McCarthy for me in the second row. I think they've been really good pairing. I think they've been a really good pairing on the defensive side of the ball in particular. I think Tadhg Beirne went the entire Six Nations without a missed tackle, for instance, and McCarthy's defensive breakdown work was pretty solid. I didn't have Peter O'Mahony in originally, but watching him last night, he did not look like a 35-year-old who's coming off of an injury. He was everywhere. He was unbelievable. I think you start O'Mahony, you give him 55 minutes, give or take, and then you bring on someone else for that explosion off the bench. Josh van der Fleer and Ireland's new captain, Caelan Doris, alongside them. I've got Gibson Park and Crowley, again, a halfback. For me, I know there's a lot of momentum behind Kieran Frawley, but for me, I think you back Jack Crowley to start at least 2, if not 3 of these games, because realistically, Kieran Frawley is going to be the backup in 3 of those anyways. He's going to get his chance. I think you stick with the lad who is in possession of the jersey, because to his credit, Andy Farrell has done that for a lot of players, whether they deserved it at the time or didn't deserve it at the time, and it has worked. You look at, say, for example, James Lowe went through a rough patch in form in Green at one stage, stuck with them, and he has not looked back since. He's been unbelievable since. I've gone with Bundy Aki and Gary Ringos in the centre. I feel like that one's nailed on at this stage, even though Ireland's centre options are unbelievable. And then James Lowe, Hugo Keenan, and I've gone with Calvin Nash. There's no wrong answer. Calvin Nash, he's, started the season slowly, was really good against the Sharks and against the Stormers. Mac Hansen is Mac Hansen, and Mac Hansen will not let you down. Maybe his hairstyles and all that, and we have to get him out there for his Movember attempts and see how they're going and track them week by week. But again, there's no wrong answers. I have Rob Herring on the bench, Cian Healy, and look, again, would we like to see younger players in there? Yes, but that's the reality of it. Like Jeremy Luckman is injured, for instance. Like they've gone with Cian Healy as essentially the only recognised loosehead behind Andrew Porter, so he's will hopefully break the Caps record sometime soon as well, hopefully. I've gone with Tom O'Toole. Tom O'Toole's form has been up and down, but I feel like it would be in bad faith to talk about, look at the age of the props, and then not talk about, the guy who has experience. And, I can't really talk out both sides of my mouth on that one, so I'd give him a chance. And look, he probably won't play at the weekend, but we'll wait and see. James Ryan, and I've gone with Cormac Izuchukwu. I'm a big fan of Izzy. I think his close contact work is really good. I think he's probably the closest role swap to what we have in the team. In terms of his breakdown work in particular, Ryan Baird probably has better line at work. Cormac Izuchukwu is probably better in the close contact physicality stuff. Not a lot between them. No wrong answer on that one again. I've gone with Craig Casey over Conor Murray. Again, no wrong answer. They're both playing really, really well. Gibson Park's going to start. It's about who's going to see it out. Kieran Frawley as the backup to Jack Crowley. And then I recognise that Andy Farrell likes having a centre on the bench, but I've gone with Mac Hansen. Now, again, to use that phrase, is there a wrong answer between Mac or Stu or Robbie or, even say someone like Jacob, for example, or Jamie Osborne? No, there isn't. They're all bored and good enough. They've all proven themselves. I've gone with Mac. I feel like if you have Frawley and Hansen, probably has a nice balance to it as your kind of two replacement backs. Definitely a nice change of tack if you need to, even though realistic games aren't won like that off the bench. But as well as that, like, that's my team against New Zealand. I still want to see Izuchukwu, Boyle, Kendellen, Prendergast, Osborne, maybe even Bolton, for example. Trying to think who else are the fresh faces in there. Maybe even Gus McCarthy getting a run out. I still want to see all these guys, but for New Zealand, that's the team that I think has the best chance of beating the All Blacks on Friday night.
Yes, I mean it's an interesting choice. All right, I mean that second test. Well, I suppose the whole two tests in South Africa, we went with without so many regular starters, and we had to do without them, but we still managed to do well down there. It showed just what options are there, and like I say, Calvin Nash did so well last year for the Six Nations when we were without Mac that I knew it wasn't a given that he would just come back to and go straight straight into the team. I don't think anyone was realistically expecting that. So and that's just one position. There's a lot of positions where players just came in and did a great job. So you like you say, the no wrong answer is really a key, and that's not a bad position to be in all 15 positions. What do you think, Jack?
Yeah, not really. Couple of people I would maybe just throw in there, but more for the most part, pretty much agree with that. I mean, it kind of depends on how you want to attack the game in terms of the hookers. I mean, I have a weird prediction that I think we've rushed Ronan Kelleher back too quickly, and if he plays, he might get injured again. So do you start him and then bring Herring off, but then Herring hasn't played any rugby either? Should we start with Dave Heffernan, who's actually, played and is playing pretty well, although he did knock out Ian Henderson, which I still haven't forgiven him for that yet, but it's a contact sport, hey. But yeah, like a couple of things. I think not to poo-poo Peter O'Mahony just as he loses the Ireland captaincy, but I think that we won that second test in South Africa when we went with the three second rows basically, and I do think, I mean, I just love having a big hybrid six, and I think Tyg Byrne is your guy for playing six and having Joe McCarthy and James Ryan. I mean, all three of them are ludicrous athletes, and probably all three of them could play 80 minutes if you asked them. So it gives you loads of flexibility. Now, do you then have Pete on the bench? I really enjoy seeing an experienced, especially Peter O'Mahony coming off the bench. You just have so much confidence that it's gonna be all right because Pete's there and he's gonna wind up the Kiwis, and you'll just get over the line. But obviously, I'd love to see Izzy in there in some way, but I mean, New Zealand first up, you're probably more likely to see Ryan Baird if you're going to go with another big sort of six lock on the bench to sort of bolster in the kind of 2021 jersey. So obviously, yeah, would love to see that. Yeah, the sort of the back line pretty much picks itself. Although I'd probably say that Bundy didn't have his best couple of games in South Africa, but it's South Africa. It's bloody tough, and I'm not saying that Stu would have done made a difference, but like we say, we've got ridiculous stocks in the center. So Kaelin says there's not really a wrong answer. Jacob Stockdale's been tearing up trees. Obviously, I'd love to see him get a go. But again, it's probably not going to be New Zealand. I mean, James Lowe is James Lowe. He does his thing. He doesn't really put a foot wrong now. So that sort of picks itself. So it's really, really hard to see how other people would, get into the starting team unless you are a Matt Hansen and you come into training and that when he came in a few years ago and just shot the lights out and people were probably thinking about Rob Balakoon being the next big sort of 14. But then he hasn't got functioning hamstrings, so it makes it hard to choose him. So yeah, look, there's plenty of little changes that I like to see, but for the most part, it'll be Gibson Park, Crowley, Aki, Ringrose, Low. I'd probably have Mac Hansen in ahead of Nash, but that's just me. Keenan, picks itself. I think Frawley actually is probably unlucky if he's on the bench, to be quite honest with you. I mean, I think he's playing excellently well. I think he's getting more game time at 10. And I think that Crowley's maybe just not on top form, but I'm welcome to be corrected on that. I haven't watched a lot of the games, but I saw some of the highlights of the Stormers game, and it seemed like he was getting a rough deal there. But probably going backwards, and it's hard to criticize a 10 if everyone's going backwards like that. But he's just trying his best, I guess. So yeah, without throwing all the Ulster lads in just for the sake of it, just because I'm an Ulster fan, I can't really see the team being much different to how everyone would expect. If you put the bookies on it, you probably get the same 23 with maybe two changes on the bench, really. Probably nothing in the starting 15. So it'll be much the same. But yeah, obviously the guys that miss out will be Osborne because we forget very quickly that he played superbly well in those first two games of his international career. So does he get a spot on the bench? Is he that extra big, bulky, guy on the bench who can play across the back line? He's an ideal 6-2 split if you want to do that. But then does Frawley miss out? Like it's intriguing, but I mean, yeah, I think it'll be as strong as possible. My only question mark is whether Peter O'Mahony loses out because they want to go as big as possible, in which case Pete might miss out. But that'll be my only question mark.
Yeah, I mean, I've always said of the years, big fan of Peter O'Mahony, and if at all possible, I would actually want him in a 23, especially against New Zealand. I think it's been said, you've said it before. He's got this knack of playing against them and bigging up his game. The one other thing I might say against starting him here is because it's Kylan Doris's first game as actual captain. So it might make sense just to have him on the pitch, just one known leader on the pitch. And like you say, there are other ways we can go. We can put Ty Byrne at 6. Ryan Baird can play 6. There's this other options you can have there, but still get the impact of Peter Manny, not only coming on for 30 minutes at the end, but just being in the dressing room, being on the pitch when they're lining up for the anthems, all that stuff, all the way he raises the game of the players around him. He's a proven leader in that respect. So I'd want him involved. And when you look at the options that aren't in that 23, we've got 2 provincial captains there. There's really a lot to choose from there. Padraig, what do you think?
Yeah, kind of. I was a mixture between the two lads. Like I actually have Kelleher or Herring starting of who's fittest, and but weirdly I've Hef on the bench because he's being used in that impact role for Ireland quite a bit. When he is in the squad, he comes off, he knows that role, and coming on at the same time with Finlay, you have the connection in the scrum. It's all those small little things as well that you can kind of point towards. That's an unspoken. I went the same with a heavy, especially after watching England New Zealand on Saturday even. Having Byrne, McCarthy, and Ryan on the pitch at the same time just seems to make sense against New Zealand. Get them going to a heavy carry game, hitting them hard. I think if we kind of have the three lads there, especially Byrne with his and Van der Fleur at the breakdown. I think it's definitely somewhere we can attack New Zealand and I think watching them there, that's why when I went, everything else in the back line is the same for me, but Mac starting because he gives Crowley the outlet of the second playmaker. I think a lot of people like focus very much on Nash's performance and Nash does well in what he does, but Mac comes in off his line and just creates that extra element of like, wait, what? That wasn't what was meant to be called. I'm 90% sure he just plays his own game. And he's out there and just does what he wants and he gets away with it. And that's fine. As I say to the girls I coach, do whatever you want as long as you can say why you did it at the end of it. At the end of the day, that's fine by me, and that's it. And he can say why he did a thing, and because it works 9 times out of 10. I have Baird on the bench because it's the whole thing of my bench is what covers positions. So Baird covers back row and second row. Prendergast for me covers 6, 7, 8. It's that type of like multifunctional sub, especially in a 5-3 split. I have Murray, Frawley, and then Osborne/Robbie. I have Murray in there because watching those 2 games over the weekend, Scotland, Fiji, and England, New Zealand, the box kick and chase and those cautionary lines don't exist anymore. That's gone. So having someone who can box kick well with some really good chasers and can compete in the air is going to be vital. And I think if you're trying to close out a match, Murray, who I think has to be said as one of the best, if not the best box kicker in the game, go with Lowe and Mac or Frawley or Osborne at that stage on the pitch. I think there's Haiti made just trying to close out a game and working down the pitch like that. It was really, really surprising to see how many times there was people being competed for. Eyes were being dropped off the ball because the second year land, you're getting smashed. It's all that side of it as well. I think tactically, especially with these new laws, variations, whatever they're called now, will suit having someone like Murray on the pitch for that last 20 minutes. And that's why I've put him in my 23 for New Zealand anyway. But yeah, it's such a talented squad. You could easily make a swap for 4 or 5 players and not notice a difference in quality. And that's what's really good about this group of Irish players, that there is literally nothing to it's game style, and what you want to do on a certain day is what chooses the 23 you're playing. It's horses for courses, not just the best 23.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's like we spoke in the previous segment about the standards that Ireland has at the moment, and we're at a stage now where we're picking these teams based on what we want to do. I mean, you do take the opposition into account, but it used to be as like, oh Jesus, there's it's going to be Dan Carter, there's going to be all these players. We gotta pick a team specifically to negate them. It says no, we want to play a certain way, and these are and we're blessed to have all these options. I agree with what you say about the scrum halves. We were saying going into that South Africa series that basically our options now, it's ideally it's either Gibson Park with Murray coming off the bench, or it's Casey with Murray coming off the bench. It's not that's nothing against Murray. It's the way it's his particular game is perfect, and we've seen it. And he knows to come in, and he's happy to be part of the squad and play his part, and he does it so well. If you're whether you're chasing a game or not, he's good at putting those box kicks right in the right spot, and either putting the other team under pressure or keeping us down that end of the field if we're trying to bring a lead home. There's lots of things. You wanted to say one more thing, Kevin?
Yeah, no, but just as you mentioned it, it's great the Park brought in a low variation that we want to talk about as opposed to the elephant in the room.
I'm in denial over that 20-minute thing.
I'm in denial about a lot of things, but that's definitely one of them as well. But I think, like, to kind of go back on what I was saying, Ireland can test their squad and have this team out against New Zealand, I think is important. Like you mentioned, Henderson and Prendergast, who we only give one mention to, Osborne. Like, I look at that squad, and I haven't done the maths on this. I don't know if it's possible to give everyone like 2 games, like a start and a bench appearance, whatever. But the vast majority of players, I'd love to see them get maybe 2 starts or 1 start, 2 bench appearances. Like, you think of someone like Ian Henderson, for example, like he still has a place in this squad. He still has a place in Ireland's short-term future. Timoney and Prendergast, like we haven't mentioned Nick Timoney yet, like which is daft. He's probably the only recognised open side. The flip side of that is, if you're looking for a role swap for Josh van der Fleer, it's probably Caelan Doris, because he is literally the jack of all trades, and it's probably Alex Tendellen, and I think that's why he was asked to play open side on the emerging Ireland tour because they see that from the Van Graan days at Munster when Kendellen was there. Very similar playing seven to how Josh van der Veer plays it. Obviously out half with Frawley and Prendergast, Jacob Stockdale, who we mentioned, like in any other time, Jacob Stockdale probably start 3 games coming into this November, but James Lowe is undroppable. And I think that's the balance act. I think there is more of a push. Now we're fans. We're not, we don't have a say, but there is more of a push from people like us to look for a little bit more experimentation, a little bit more scope, similar to what Jack said. And like the quality is there. I think that's the thing. I think provincial performances have been up and down. It's the start of the season. It happens, like especially in a short season, but like the quality is there. I don't feel uncomfortable. Like, what is it, 35-man squad? I think there's only about 5 or 6 players where I think there's actually a bit of a drop off, and that's because usually the lad in front of them is just world class. Like, say, Andrew Porter. Like, we don't have 2 Andrew Porters, unfortunately. If we did, we would clone them. But I think it's testament to the squad. But I think that's why we want to see a little bit more movement, because we know a Cormac Izuchukwu is as good as a Ryan Baird, and we know that, Kieran Frawley is just as good, and we know Jamie Osborne, and so on and so forth. And that's probably only exciting thing. I think November can kind of be, yay, rugby as opposed to, the games, but it's certainly one massive excitement to it.
Absolutely. Okay, for our third and final segment, I've asked the lads to switch into prediction mode and have a go at telling us what they think will happen over the coming weeks, not just with Ireland, but in general throughout the series. We have, of course, already had 2 matches this weekend, which the organisers, for some reason, decided to call Week 0, with Scotland handily dispatching the Fijians and after England fell short against the All Blacks. Starting with Jack, how do you see things going?
Yeah, my prediction is we'll win all 4. I think that it's probably likely if you win the first one, it's kind of a downhill. It's a downhill cycle after that, isn't it? Really, you kind of know what you're going to get, and probably whack in a few changes. Just I guess I know we talked about the squad and stuff, and just listening to the fellas chat about who's going to start, who's going to do what. If it were me, if I was picking the team, which would be fun, I would have 2 guys in there that I really, as like a coach, I'd say I want to see what you can do, and those 2 guys would probably be Cormac Izuchukwu at 6 and probably Jamie Osborne, but at 12. I just like to see how he gets on in that 12 shirt. Nothing against Bundy. We know exactly what he can do, but he's another one who's 34, I think. He's not exactly, spring chicken anymore. He can still do what he does, and he's incredibly, and he melted Jamie's brother, wasn't it? Wasn't which was a piece of art, that tackle. But the Mr. Osborne probably doesn't agree. So
Mr. Osborne probably doesn't remember.
Yeah, well, I'd hope so. That's what I would hope for. I would just I don't remember that. Yeah, complete ignorance. So yeah, like I would throw someone in there, but I wouldn't do any more than 2. If it's more than 2, combination will get messed up, and you're not going to see a good bit of cohesion, which again, you go back to the start, what I said at the start of the pod. It's like Andy Farrell and the Ireland setup like to have consistency and cohesion and belief. I mean, do your Ted Lasso gif now if you want, but adversity, isn't it? Or whatever Farrell says, he loves it. Just point to that and be like, you'll get through it. Let's just stick Van der Fleer in at hooker because we know he can do it anyway. So let's just do something mad. No, I'm laying this. But yeah, make a couple of changes for the New Zealand game. If you do, 1 or 2, give it a go, give it a lash. If we lose and it's like, well, you know what, we find out a lot about Cormac Izuchukwu and Jimmy Osborne at playing 6 and 12, then I'd be happy with that. And then similar, really, for the rest of the series, I'd like to see a good few changes for Fiji. and Australia. I think we can rotate for those two games, and then I think we go full metal jacket for the Argentina game because you never know what they can do, and they could just beat you on the day. But I don't see them coming to Dublin and winning, so it shouldn't be too bad. But I would still just go give the first team a bit of a run out again, basically against Argentina. But yeah, I'd love to just see like a couple of changes, like Helen was saying, just to try and get as many minutes into these guys as as possible. Is Tom O'Toole going to get a go at loosehead? That would be fun to see. But again, maybe not against New Zealand. So yeah, I mean, I'd love to see all the squad get some game time, and who knows, some of those emerging Ireland players getting minutes, just get a bit of confidence. And I think somebody like Candellen probably would do wonders, because I just don't know if he's making that next kind of step in his kind of career. But I think if he got some exposure, got some minutes in a game against Fiji, playing with Ty Byrne, in well, no, not that he plays with him at Munster anyway, but playing in the Ireland shirt, in the Ireland environment, and saying, yeah, I can rub shoulders with the best and still pull my weight. I think that would be ideal for the whole squad, really, and for the team in general.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose when you're looking at predicting for Ireland in particular, it's hard to look past the New Zealand game because that game is really going to sort of define. It's going to define the way the month goes, especially if you have those expectations of 4 wins. So it's a tough one to start with. But I suppose looking at the broader series, there's some interesting subplots there. Just for example, I mean, Australia. We all know all that's going on down there, and a lot of us are kind of looking at that. We've kind of two more difficult games to start with, and funnily enough, Australia and Fiji are the sort of the ones where we can maybe experiment with the squad. But from their point of view, I mean, of course, we've got the Lions series coming up down there. They are actually playing. Their schedule is the 4 Lions nations over the 4 weeks, and they're playing the 4 of them. So to see how they get along against them, looking ahead to what's going to happen next summer, it's going to be really interesting. It's Parik next. What do you see happening?
So I'll go quickly. Ireland, I think, will see a clean sweep. I think one player that the larger public don't really know, so like an Institute or Cian Prendergast or Sam Prendergast, even though I think lots of people know about him at this stage, will shine. Will come out of this with one new kind of name, like Osborne was in the summer after his kind of performance. I think we're going to get one more kind of standout player in green. I don't think it'd be more than that. Definitely be one more. I think Scotland outside of South Africa game will look like world beaters, but once again, will flatter to deceive once it's a big game. From the Welsh perspective, I think they'll stutter along. You just can't tell with what's going on there at the moment. England will look impressive, but will come up short in one other game. I can't wait to see England versus Japan just for the Eddie Jordanness, just for the Eddiness of that whole thing. That would be great. And Australia, I can't wait to play Australia because we're going to play them when all their French players have to go away again. So like we're going to get their light squad, not the full bore squad that is going to be here for the first 3 weeks. But the big thing is, I think there's going to be a red card flare up. Something's going to happen where it'll be this. There'll just be gigantic red card discourse about one tackle of some description. Like, did he mean it? Didn't mean it? Did we look into his soul and know that was meant? That was vindictive. Like, this is the problem with that new 20-minute law. Is like, we can still red card someone if we think they did something really bad. I'm like, okay, how can you tell? Tell me if you know they did that on purpose, please. Like, look into the soul of the man. Like that. This is the type of stuff we're talking about now with that 20-minute red card. Let the TMO, the second TMO, judge it when you've got the yellow card with a flash to the red. Let them deal with it. Just let them deal with it. Do not get involved in, oh, I think that was actually kind of bad. No, don't stick to that. Get rid of the 20-minute red card. Well, that's a personal bugger anyway. But we're going to have a big flare up that's going to cause a big discussion about, was that meant? Was that intentional? Was it just accidental? Was it this? Was it that? And just brings it up over and over again. Rugby has an issue where things get too subjective. They're adding far too much subjectivity to something very, very dangerous and very, very important for player welfare. that's going to cause issues because these games get played at a mile a minute. They are a higher intensity than the club game. They're a higher intensity than the Champions Cup. Everyone says it. Everyone who plays them knows this. So people do things out of tiredness, out of exhaustion, that can look malicious, but are more than likely accidental. Can look accidental, but more than likely are malicious. So it's that type of stuff. And that's going to flare up. And it's going to be another discussion about Northern Hemisphere versus Southern Hemisphere, player welfare. That's going to be, I think, what we're going to be talking about in 4 weeks' time, not the great rugby. That's what's going to, personally, that's what I think is going to be the big conversation.
Yes, very possible. What do you think, Kyle?
I really don't want to see Porrick's red card prediction come true again. It's the cross we all have to bear. I actually did up a couple of predictions, and it's only when I read over them I realized I kind of have them in a spectrum of how hot of a prediction that they are. So I'll start with I have France going 3 from 3. That's very tame, but I think we'll see a potential smoke screen from France. I feel like November is when they overperform. Like they've had really good Novembers compared to Six Nations or even the World Cup last year. So I feel like we'll get a French Renaissance, and we'll probably have an Antoine Dupont moment because it's a day ending in Y. I've Ireland winning all 4 games. That's kind of mild. That's 50-50 at worst, I feel like. Um, I'm gonna put my neck out in the line. I think we'll see 5 debuts. Now, I don't think Andy Farrell has done 5 debuts in the last 2 years combined. It's only had 2 for this year, and it was 6 last year, I think, and that was had World Cup warm-ups. Izuchukwu, Kindellan, I think Jack Boyle or Thomas Clarkson, Sam Prendergast and Gus McCarthy. Now, that is a little bit of hopium as much as anything else, but okay, let's see. Maybe they will. I think at least 2 of those probably get minutes. More likely 3 or 4. And then because you mentioned Will Skelton, why not? He's going to score from a cross kick again for the second time in a month because the try he scored last night was just incredibly funny. So I'm just going to, why not? Will Skelton is a very fun rugby player to watch when he's on form. It won't be against Ireland, as Boric mentioned, but yeah, let's go with that. Will Skelton score from a cross kick. You know what? He might be one-handed like Odell Beckham or something, and then just push someone off and dot it down. It's November. Let's have a bit of fun with this.
Absolutely. Jack, you wanted to come in for one more thing?
Yeah, it's kind of basically the refereeing things, which I won't go quite as controversial, but I will just say that I didn't see any of the games yesterday because I was out, but I did see the highlights, and throughout all of the highlights, it should have just been a highlight reel of look at all these decisions that we missed for England and Scotland. Because I was watching, especially the Scotland game, and I don't think we have any of the those referees for this game, but I don't know. Gardner might be reffing us some other time. I'm not sure, but so many like forward passes that led to like scores for Scotland, and Darcy Graham's little try that he scored when he drops the ball, but they say he kicked it. I was like, he's absolutely fluffed his lines there. What are you talking about? He's completely missed it. So like, yeah, there's gonna be these decisions, and those little 3, 4, 5 yard like short pot passes that just seem to just obviously go forward, and the linesmen and the ARs are just standing slightly behind, so they're not perfectly in line, so they just completely miss it. TMO's probably thinking, lads, come on. I can't be jumping in on every single, little piece of play. I wish they did that for our try against the Ospreys, because that was an absolute belter, and Eric O'Sullivan throws an offload on the halfway line, and the only reason they know is because it's on the halfway line. So yeah, little things like that. I mean, we're gonna miss decisions, and it'll probably go against us. So it might go for us. It's just one of those things. It's live sport. It's like live refereeing, like you say. The game is played helter skelter. It's gonna be mayhem, but it's going to be fun, and I hope that it is, and I hope that it's really good fun. I hope we see some lovely rugby, and there's going to be a few decisions that we can rant and rave on sorry, Twitter, afterwards. But let's keep it light, keep it entertaining, and obviously don't abuse any of the officials, if anyone's listening. But yeah, debate the decisions. It's good, it's good to have a bit of healthy debate. But yeah, I hope that it's just one of those things that you can hold your hands up and shake hands afterwards and say, yeah, well, you know what, we missed it, but we're all human. It's entertainment at the end of the day. So yeah, I'm hoping that it's going to be a good fun game that I'm going to have to watch back because I'm going to miss watching it live because I'm away again. So pray for me, but I will hopefully watch it back in all its glory later on next weekend.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about November being a time for experimentation, but it's a lot of experimentation going on in the terms of the laws as well, I suppose. And I suppose it's as good a time as ever to do it. But as we all know, there's been a lot of contention over things, and without going into the whole debate, it's just a shame that we've got this warfare going through the press. They can't just meet up behind the scenes and come up with a sort of a united plan going forward. They go forward with the rule, and then you got unions, you got the Irish union, the French union saying we're actually against this. It's just all a bit messy. But listen, hopefully we don't have a situation where some decision is too contentious, and we just have a good series right through to the end, and fingers crossed for that. Well, that's brilliant, lads. Many thanks to Pádraig, Caolan and Jack for taking the extra time to record. Pleasure as always, and hope to have you all back on again soon. Thanks, lads.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Jeff.
Cheers.
As for our next batch of Harpin, keep an eye on our YouTube channel during the week for our latest bonus chat, and also our 80 plus column, which we'll post on Wednesday. After that, we'll be giving the date with the All Blacks the full Harpin treatment with a preview on Thursday and a wrap pod on the Sunday. So be sure to follow us on any or all of our social media platforms, which you'll find at linktree/Harpin On Rugby. In the meantime, stay safe, everyone. Slán.